So if we start off here first with the S mint mark, you want to look for a repunched mint mark. So get you a USB coin microscope. I have them available on couchcollectibles.com. That way you can see your coins up close. You can see underneath the S, that other S, where it has been repunched. Now here is an example of a 1925S that has that RPM, that repunched mint mark. Now you can see that this coin clearly has been circulated. It is not a high graded coin. However, because of that RPM, the coin did still sell for over $140. Now if this coin was in much better condition, of course it would sell for a lot more money. Now if we look at the 1925S, this one does not have any types of errors. This coin is graded at about uncirculated 53. If you're not familiar with coin grading, the coin grading scale goes up to 70. This coin only sold for around $20. But if we look at a 1925S that has a high grade, this is graded at a mint state 65 red. So that will give it all of its value. That's why the coin is valuable, because of the high grade and graded at red. So this penny here sold for over $18,000. So we go from a wheat penny that sold for $20 to $18,000 because of the grade. Also, don't forget to look for doubling on the front of your coins. Look for doubling on all the lettering and the date, because you never know what you can find with your USB coin microscope. This 1925S double die obverse does not have the highest grade at all. It's graded at an extra fine 40, and this penny sold for over $125. Moving on to a 1925S with a questionable color. Now this penny here sold for a little over $100. If we move on to the 1925D that has been cleaned, now this coin is graded at a mint state 60. Again, it's been cleaned, so that will devalue it. I do not recommend that you clean your coins at all. It will devalue your coins. This coin here sold for a little over $60. Now if we go to a 1925D that has a high grade, a mint state 66 red grade by PCGS, this coin sold for over $74,000. That's right, $74,000. Here's another example of a 1925D that is not mint state grade. It's graded at about uncirculated 53. You can tell that the penny is brown as opposed to that red designation that we looked on the last penny. This penny only sold for around $30. Here's a 1925 wheat penny, the Denver Mint, that has been struck off center, 15% off center. Obviously, you don't need a microscope for anything like this. You can clearly see it in your pocket change or in a coin roll from the bank. Now, this coin here sold for a little over $150. If we move on to the 1925 no mint mark, now this one is solely valuable again because of its high grade, graded at a mint state 67 red. This penny sold for over $5,000, 5,000 US dollars. Here's pennies that I discussed in one of my recent videos, silver pennies, gold pennies. Be sure to go watch that video. This is a 1925 penny that was actually struck on a silver dime. So we can see that there in the image displayed, how it has been struck on a dime planchet. Now this coin here sold for over $1,000. That's right, a $1,000 coin. Now check out the rest of these wheat pennies that you should always be on the lookout for that are also worth money. We're going to start with the 1946D Lincoln Cent. Now here are 3 examples of an RPM. Meaning that the mint mark, the D mint mark on the 1946D has been repunched, RPM repunched mint mark. You can see that there in those 3 different images of the D's being repunched. Now depending on the condition of the coin and many other factors that determine a coin's value, they could go for all different prices. Now here's an example of a 1946D that has an RPM that sold for a little over $60. Hey, 1 cent and the $60, I will always take it. Next up is an off-center coin. So this is a 1946 Lincoln Cent. Philadelphia Mint, of course, no mint mark, so Philadelphia Mint here. And because of this off-center error, this penny sold for just over $50. Now here's a higher graded coin that is off-centered as well, and it sold for over $150. Moving on to a 1946S San Francisco minted Lincoln cent. Now this 1946 penny here is interesting because you got the S over the D mint mark. Now you can see the D there underneath the S, and here's an example of a coin that actually has that S over D mint mark. Now this 1946 penny here sold for over $115. Now just like the D mint mark, there's also RPMs on the S mint mark. This is an example of 1946S RPM, a little bit blurry, but they are out there, so definitely get you a cheap little coin, USB microscope, plug it into your computer, and you will be able to see up close on these pennies when you're searching through them. So always be on the lookout for the 1946S RPM. Now here's just an example of another 1946 S over D that isn't as high of a grade as the one that we showed you earlier. Now this penny sold for over $60. Moving on to another 1946 Denver minted Lincoln cent. Now this penny was actually struck on a dime, a 10-cent planchet. It weighs just over 2.5 grams. The coin is damaged. However, because of this error, this gives the penny value. Now this 1946 penny sold for over $400. Here's a high graded example of the 1946 Lincoln cent. Now this penny here sold for over $10,000. $10,000. Here is a 1915 D Denver minted Lincoln wheat penny here. Now what makes this coin valuable is that it has an RPM. That means it has a repunched mint mark. So that D mint mark on the coin is repunched. Now here's an example of what a repunched mint mark can look like. This is actually on a 1927 D wheat penny, but we're looking at the 1915 D, so it could look a little different. You never know. Repunched mint marks vary based on many different things. But if you want to see your coins up close like this, you can get that coin microscope on couchcollectibles.com. Now this 1915 RPM here sold for a little over $50, but it doesn't have a high grade. It's only graded at a fine 12. So if this coin was graded at, like, you know, a really high grade, it's gonna sell for a lot more money. Next up is a 1915S wheat penny here. Now this penny has a lower grade, so I'm gonna show you a lower grade compared to a higher grade. Now it is graded at about uncirculated 58, so it's not like extremely low, but it's also not considered a mint state coin because mint state coins go from 60 to 70. This is graded at a 58, about uncirculated. So you will see the difference with what this will sell for in comparison to the next coin. Now this coin, because of its grade, sold for over $400. Now for the 1915S, they only did mint, they only made or produced 4.8 million of those coins. So keep that in mind as well. That is the lowest mintage of the 1915 penny. You got the 1915 no mint mark, the 1915D, and the 1915S. Now if we look at a high grade of the same exact coin, a 1915S, graded at a mint state 66, we're going from a $400 coin to a $46,000 coin. So this penny here sold for over $46,000 just because of that high grade. If we move on to the no mint mark 1915, this is graded at about uncirculated 58, just like the other one as well. Now they did make 29 million of these no mint mark pennies from 1915, so they made a lot more than the San Francisco minted penny. But this coin still sold for over $60, so not huge money. But if we go to the high graded version of this coin, a 1915 no mint mark, mint state 67 grade on this coin, this penny sold for over $20,000. $20,000. Now if we look at the 1915D Denver minted Lincoln wheat penny here, well again we got the same grade, AU58, so that's going to be the lower grade in comparison to the two that we're comparing here, and it sold for over $125. Now again, if we go to the high graded version of the 1915D, this one here is graded at a mint state 66, and this penny sold for over $23,000. Don't forget to subscribe in the middle, check out the videos to the left of me, and until tomorrow, I will see you on the comment section below. This is Couch Collectibles, and this is where I disappear.